Yep.
I'm sort of getting out of that.
Good. That's really exciting. I'm so glad that you're excited about research.
Yes.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you all for coming out for our first ever Careers with Psychology workshop. First, I'd like to thank you all, the panelists first for coming. Faculty, it's really nice to see you here. You all students, thank you for coming. If there's anyone from the community as well, welcome. What we would like to, the Careers with Psychology workshop is an idea where we want to introduce or expose to students various potential careers linked to psychology. And we are thankful to have 5 diverse individuals who have psychology in common to a large extent, but do different things. I would like them to share with us their story regarding after bachelor's, what they did with psychology, which directions they went, and then also what potential jobs are out there, starting with their bachelor's and then moving on. So to do the introduction, I'll invite Dr. Becky Nastali. The two of us have been working on this throughout, so she's going to go ahead and do the introductions, and then we'll jump right into it and let our presenters. Thank you.
Great. So first up in our list of presenters today is Chad Lampe. Chad is a 2006 graduate of the Murray State Psychology Program. His career is rooted in public media, with time as a journalist covering regional and national stories for outlets including Kentucky Public Radio, KET, WNYC Studios, and NPR. He's also served as the station manager of WKMS, Murray State's NPR station, and now works with PRX, the Public Radio Exchange, which is one of the nation's leading public media content, technology, and training companies. So help me in welcoming Chad. I'm making the slides.
Very few. I just have notes here on my phone, so forgive me for looking at it. How it's working, we're going to figure it out. Okay. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Is this thing work? I don't know if y'all can hear it. Can you guys hear anything? Hello? Hello?
I think you have to press the...
How about now? Is that better?
Yes.
Hey, hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for having me. So, is it Dr. Nastali mentioned? So I studied here from 2002 to 2006. I got my BA in Psych and then went on to get a master's in mass communication, but I promise you that my career path would have proceeded this way with or without a master's. The master's was just good. It was just nice to have it. So, okay. So I started out working at WKMS, which is Murray State's NPR station. If you don't listen to NPR public media, I encourage you to listen to it. It's just good, a good way to educate yourself. It's a nice media source, and an unbiased opinion is that smart people listen to public media. So I encourage you all to listen to it. If you don't listen to it now, you probably will. Probably will. So I started there as a student intern, actually, and then worked my way up to news director and started telling stories as a journalist. And spent about 10 years as the news director, and then was hired as the station manager and spent about 7 years there. And I've been with PRX for about 4 months now. And my work with PRX is primarily station work. So I have a territory of stations across the country that I work with, around 300 stations, where I develop relationships and place content if necessary, or training, or technology tools that we have. And that's basically my day-to-day work along with working with content producers. But there was a brief stint, about 16 weeks, where I worked with NPR at a place called the Public Radio Incubation Lab. And that was a cohort of folks from across the country that worked together to reimagine the way public media works. And we undertook a design thinking based approach to reimagining the public media system. So that's kind of my career path in a nutshell. A little bit about my current company that I work with. So PRX represents about 100 million monthly podcast downloads. We produce a whole bunch of shows, and we have a broadcast portfolio of shows that reach about 25 million listeners every week. And so my job within PRX is to help represent those programs, represent those podcast producers, and also serve stations in any way that they need, or anything they need from PRX. We also have a technology arm of our company, so if you ever listen to a podcast and hear an ad that's located in your region called a geo-targeted ad, we have a bespoke technology that we place with stations and podcast producers. We produce a number of different shows across the country that use that tech. Let's see. So when I was thinking about this, when I asked to speak to you just very briefly, the tenets of the psych degree that have led me on the career path that I'm on now is that essentially everything that I do, the way that I approach everything in my career is human-centered. It's not a thing-centered, it's not an entity, it's not a concept, it's human-centered, right? So when you approach leadership in your role, you approach it from the person up, not from the goal out. So the thing you want the person to do, or would like for them to do, is not about the thing, it's about the human that you're leading. And what are their drivers? What are their felt needs? What are the tenets that will help you lead that person to the given outcome that you need? Human-centered design. Whenever we design initiatives or we design a project, we always think about the human that we will be impacting in some way, whether it's a journalism project. So we're thinking about the audience first. So we think about their needs. We think about the things that drive them. We think about some of the theories behind why people behave the way that they do. And if you approach all of your journalism or content-related projects from a human-centered or audience-first approach, you're likely going to serve them better. So I think about things I've learned in social psych and learning and memory and physiological psych. We still have physio psych too. Like a lot of those things still come up to in my job often. I always remember Dr. Wan saying, the brain likes it easy, right? So like, number one, we think about that. And sometimes I find myself thinking about the general affect aggression model on occasion, right? So like, those are things that come up very, very often in my career path. In my previous iteration, when I was the station manager at WKMS, I did a lot of fundraising, and one thing that always came up in fundraising was the diffusion of responsibility. That's something I learned about in abnormal psych, I think, perhaps, maybe. That was with Dr. Duncan on that. So you think about who's going to do it. Likely nobody, unless you find the one person that leads, right? So anyway, so there are psychological theories or studies that I've kept with me through my career for the last, almost 20 years, right? Human-centered negotiations. My current job requires negotiating for content or space on somebody's broadcast schedule. And I have to really put myself in the position of the person I'm negotiating with. And, in some cases, if you listen good enough and you can think about some concepts of human behavior, cognition, you can find a way to end up on the right side of that negotiation. That's what you should be. And I think I touched a bit on human-centered training. Oh, the primacy and recency effect, that comes up pretty, for me, a fair amount, or again, whenever I was training a staff or a team of journalists. So I say all that, and I spout off some of those things that I can remember from classes many years ago, but they're still with me, they still matter, and they've really guided me to where I am today. And that's all that I really have. I'm not a clinician, I spend time working directly in a field that you might think is a traditional field that you would have with a psych degree, but it's helped me tremendously, and I don't think I would have performed the way that I've performed thus far in my career without the psych degree or understanding. So that's what I've got.
So we are going to save time for questions here at the end when all the presenters finish. We meant to tell you that before we started. So our next presenter is Aloha Romay. Aloha holds a master's degree in clinical psychology from our own department here at Murray State University. She holds licensure as a psychological practitioner and works as the site administrator for the Testing and Assessment Center at Four Rivers Behavioral Health in Paducah. She has promised to reveal more about her training and journey in the field of psychology during her presentation tonight. So join me in welcoming the Well Honorable Anne.
I don't know how PowerPoint because I'm ADHD, so it was, well, I can't because I have a sheet sheet. So, anyway, my name is Loha Ramey, and I am a graduate of Murray State University. My master's degree in clinical psychology. The year is not relevant. However, I recognize two of my fellow professors here. I got my bachelor's degree from where I'm originally from, which is Maracaibo, Venezuela, and my bachelor's degree is actually in clinical psychology. Our programs there are completely different than here. Our programs back home, we have internships, we have practicums, we have thesis, and we can just practice. Whereas here, you have to kind of continue a little bit your career. So when I was thinking about talking to bachelor level psychology students, I was trying to think really carefully as to what I wanted to say, what kind of things you can do with your career, whether you continue with your bachelor's degree and that's it and you stop, or whether you want to continue your career further and get a master's degree or a doctorate degree. I have been really lucky since I completed my master's degree. I have held several roles. I've been in practice for 18 years now, and I started basically as a therapist, just doing clinical work with adults. That then led me to being a certified domestic violence counselor. So I was teaching a bunch of men and women not to beat their spouse. Not the choice of career I wanted, but that's just kind of what the role gave me. Also doing some testing for vocational rehabilitation, and I was lucky enough to have a really, really good supervisor, Dr. Michael Nicholas, who's a neuropsychologist and taught me a lot about psychological testing. Since my bachelor's, I have loved that area, and I think those were the classes that I paid attention to the most, abnormal side and Dr. Lilliquist's clinical measurement 1 and 2, and her love of as equal. Sorry, I remember this. In her case. So I paid a lot of attention to those classes, so I've always been interested in that area of psychology, psychological testing and diagnosis. It's one of the things that I think it gets overlooked in any profession, any mental health professional, whether it's psychology or social work or licensed professional counselor, how important diagnosis is. If we don't have the right diagnosis, how do we do the right treatment? But again, through my career, I just always landed as a therapist. In 2012, I decided to quit that, from that line of practice, and I started working at Four Rivers Behavioral Health, which is where I currently work. And I started as an assessment specialist. Our assessment specialist position, you just need a bachelor's degree, basically. And all you do is intake. You do the psychosocial clinical interview, you transfer it to a clinician, and then you move on. And it's a break. It was a break for after several years of doing therapy and not really wanting to do therapy for a while, because I'm going to warn you, you're going to get burned out no matter what you do. So it was just a little bit of a change of pace. And then from that position, it was in the children's department, I transitioned to a clinician and actually doing therapy with children. And I had no idea what I was doing. One of my first consumers was a nonverbal autistic child with genetic conditions who had attention span in 5 minutes, and that's all I can do with therapy. And then from there, I continued to just, in the back of my mind, I just wanted to do testing, which was nothing that was offered at Four Rivers. My supervisor at the time, I pestered her about once a week or more about, why don't you do testing? And the answer is like, insurance don't pay for it. And insurance isn't included. I said, I'm going to figure it out what happened. And I submitted my first 3 hours of work to insurance, and it got denied. And then I appealed it and you got paid. And from there, it was 1 referral, 2 referrals, 5 referrals, and now a year wait list of referrals for psychological testing. So from doing clinical work, my boss said, oh, don't we do a program? Make this just testing program. So I became the program coordinator for testing and assessment center, and was still doing some clinical work under children's services. And as of this year, my program became a site. So I'm just an independent little bubble of doing nothing but psychological testing. Our site also does, besides the testing, we also do, we just hired a new person to do ABA, and we do what we call PACE-R evaluations, which is evaluations for the state of Kentucky for admissions to nursing facilities. So we do evaluations to, to people in the nursing home who have severe mental illness or have an intellectual disability, and to determine whether they need extra services. So our main focus is actually autism spectrum disorders, but we also work with individuals with intellectual disabilities to receive waiver services, so they are taken care of. They know what their families can no longer take care of them. We work anywhere from 2 to 2.5 years old to adulthood, so it's a long range of people that we serve. We use some screeners. We use the ASRS autism rating scale. We use the Conners, which is a very standard for ADHD. In terms of measure, we use the Wechsler scales. We also use the ADOS. Some of you people familiar, if you're not familiar with the ADOS just yet. For diagnosis of autism, we do MMPIs, we do the wide range achievement test for this individual. And, the process is a very intense process. Again, we have a whole year of a wait list, if not more. And it is because it's a very intensive process. It all starts with a clinical interview with the family, and sometimes it takes an extra interview and a developmental interview with insurance companies, and you'll find out later on in life. And then from there, it takes 1 to 3 sessions of psychological testing, just to determine what is going on with the person. Then after that, we do the report, and then we do a follow-up with the family to go over the results. Because as you find out soon, psychological reports tend to be super technical. Nobody can tell you what a base rate is. So we explain that to the family. We explain that how the results or how those numbers mean in real life. So it's really important for us to follow up with the family and make those recommendations, because sometimes it's therapy what we need to recommend. Sometimes it's occupational therapy they need to recommend. Sometimes it's ABA. Sometimes it's physical therapy. Sometimes it's a doctor's appointment with an eye doctor, which we have done before. Visual disabilities. So it is a very intense, process. Again, my passion is psychological testing. It's not everybody's passion, and I find it very interesting. Sometimes psychology people don't like testing, because that's kind of what sets us apart. That's one thing that makes us different from a licensed clinical social worker, from an LPC, CDP. We can do testing. That's our little specialty, that's our little field. However, not everybody goes through the same path. I went through with getting a master's degree. Some people just, I'm just going to get a master's and just work. But, in the process, there are other career opportunities that you can actually get with a bachelor's degree. Apple River, I can only speak from, where I work at, you can become a clinical associate. Those are the people that work at our crisis unit, which is a 24/7, crisis stabilization unit. You answer, phones and every crisis call you handle. If there's too much, you handle it to, hand it to a clinician and then go your merry way. But you also are part of the staff that takes care of the people who are, inpatient in a crisis stabilization unit, and help those people get through that stage of their life. So it's a very important role, and it's a role that you have to be, careful and cautious and trained for, but it's a role that you can start in. Another position that you can be is a community support associate, and that is basically like I call it like a case manager light. Those are people that go into the homes and work with people with severe mental illness and teach them adaptive skills. One thing that you will find later on whenever you're working, you're doing your clinical work, is that oftentimes these people are severely ill, and they don't even know how to do a load of laundry, which, well, it doesn't matter how I am, but I should be able to do a load of laundry. But there's some people that don't know, so community support associates go into the homes and look for the needs and teach them, how to cook, how to do laundry, how to clean their house, or reporting situations sometimes. So this is a very critical component of what the clinician does, because the clinician only teaches them how to dress and not be anxious, but you're basically teaching skills. Then you also can be a case manager for individuals with severe mental illness or the IDD population of people with intellectual disabilities. You help them get waivers, you assist them in getting employment or going to a food pantry. And then you can also be an assessment specialist, which is basically how I started, even though I have a master's degree. And for an assessment specialist, insurance is not required that you have to be working toward a master's degree, but it's a good opportunity for you as an intern. Even if you decide to go to a master's degree program, then you can start as a assessment specialist where you're doing your internship, get paid for your position, and then get your master's degree later on. You still get that clinical experience. We have people that started as a clinical associate, moved into community support specialist, and then became a program coordinator. So you can actually move on from just answering calls in a crisis unit to being a program coordinator with a bachelor's degree. So I guess what I'm going to conclude with is that there is no straight route. There are so many things that you can do. With a bachelor's degree, with a master's degree, with a bachelor's for now, maybe you're decide to go into a master's program, but there are so many positions that you have option to get into it and still be able to move on or move up in your professional career. So that's what I got. Stop working halfway. I can't hear it. You're welcome. So now you have to screen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. I've got Katie Englert coming up here next. Katie Englert received a bachelor's degree in family and consumer science from the University of Kentucky in 2005 and a master's in marriage and family therapy and mental health counseling from Western Kentucky University in 2009. She's a licensed therapist and entrepreneur who started Compass Counseling in Paducah in 2013, which has expanded to locations in Owensboro, Henderson, and Lewisport since that time. Katie was named as the 2019 Entrepreneur of the Year by the Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce. In 2020, the Kentucky Counseling Association named her Outstanding Mental Health Counselor of the Year for professional excellence and distinguished service in part for training over 300 counselors in the state of Kentucky on how to deliver telehealth counseling during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for that. Katie serves in leadership roles in the community as a member of the Paducah Bank Advisory Board and serves as the current Vice Chair of the Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce. She is also the owner of Chicken Salad Chick in Paducah. It's a great place to eat. She really enjoys watching her daughter play soccer, her son play everything else, traveling, and creating a life that enriches lives, spreads joy, and serves others. Please welcome Katie Englert.
Okay, so about us, some of our core values are comfort, connection, trust, and results. So we are, our goal is, and our mission is to provide a trusted team of professional therapists, coaches, and case managers to collaborate and create a safe space for you to prioritize your mental health and guide you down your path to making change. We're pretty future focused in parts of our practice, and we also do trauma, which is obviously towards the past. So we offer three main things. We offer clinical outpatient counseling, we offer targeted case management, and we offer this little extra category down here of teaching. We do public speaking, we do some courses and groups and workshops for small businesses in our area and online. Dr. Nasali mentioned that I did a webinar for the state. I was the nerd in Western Kentucky who was really interested in telehealth prior to COVID, and nobody else was. Just so happened I had already had a training approved by the state when the pandemic hit. Before that, I had trained for like 2 years prior to the pandemic hitting. I think in total 12 people. So it's just kind of worked out that I was able to quickly train people in the state for that minute. So that's another point to make is just because it doesn't sound traditionally psych, pay attention to what you're interested in because psych can work out in a lot of different ways. So the position that we offer at Compass Counseling is a targeted case manager. We call that TCM for short. Aloha kind of briefly mentioned that that's one of the positions that they have as well. So what TCM does is they assess, link, and plan with individuals who have specific severe mental illness, social emotional disorder, and substance abuse issues. You have to have a qualifying diagnosis and have an insurance that's under the Kentucky Managed Care Program, which is Kentucky Medicaid and all their subsidiaries that fall under that Kentucky Medicaid umbrella. And what the targeted case manager does is they have to have a clinical diagnosis to qualify for the program. And oftentimes our clients who are in TCM have a therapist, and so that might or may not be in our practice, so they can be anywhere. But that's what the targeted case manager does. So they work with the individual to help them achieve their clinical goals. I always say quicker. So they can really step into the life and meet and work one-on-one outside of the clinical session with the client to help them to learn where they need to link up with community services and resources that are available to them. And it may be something as simple as keeping a calendar. And I know that that's something that we all probably take for granted in here because you have schedules for everything, but there are things that some people really struggle with, especially if they have that severe mental illness or issues that requires them to focus on other things. And so the target case manager will work with them on short-term and long-term tactics in order to reach their goal. So I just came up with a couple different ways that the target case managers told me that they like some recent wins with their clients. And you can see that up here. They're really basic and things that you and I might take for granted every day, but not everybody gets to grow up in a situation where they can go to college or learn skills or have access to resources. So a lot of times we see problems in the community where there are resources available and there are people that need them, but there's no bridge between the two. And that's really the beauty of state training that's required within 6 months of becoming a targeted case manager that the state offers. And it's a 12-hour course. We cover that at Compass. Everybody's different on how that works out, and then there's specializations that you can get underneath of that. What RTCNs like is that RTCNs make their own schedule, and they are very flexible with that. And so we have a lot of times we'll have graduate students after they kind of get that first year under their belt after being graduated. It works really well with people that are in graduate program because of the flexibility of the job. And that's just our contact information. So I really am happy to be here, and like I said before, just because it doesn't sound psych-like, there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize your degree. And I'm going to say this as a business owner of multiple types. A lot of things are going to boil down to a mindset, an attitude, and the discipline to show up to work every day. And so don't underestimate that, and that will get you far.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly Morrow is our next presenter. She graduated here from Murray State University's Master in Clinical Psychology program. Since graduating from Murray State, Ms. Morrow worked for 10 years at the Regional Rape Crisis and Child Advocacy Center in Paducah, Kentucky, where she gained expertise in trauma treatment and trauma-informed care. In addition to extensive continuing education in trauma interventions, she became a certified EMDR provider in 2013 and became trained in providing neurofeedback in 2016. After leaving the Rape Crisis and Child Advocacy Center, she moved on to working for Kentucky's Department of Juvenile Justice, where she has been employed since 2018. She began her career with DJJ as the first mental health professional hired for the juvenile detention centers, following the Center for Children's Law and Policy recommendations to increase mental health services in juvenile detention centers in Kentucky. Since 2020, she has worked as the treatment director at the Mayfield Youth Development Center, where she's provided services to committed and confined juveniles. Ms. Morrow holds licensure in Kentucky as a psychological practitioner and a professional clinical counselor. Sorry.
There are laws that are being worked on to change that, but as of right now, technically that could happen. So DJJ is responsible for kids from like the beginning of the court system all the way through the committed bond process. So you have people who are working with them on things like diversions, you're working with them going through the legal system, all that kind of stuff. All right, so our mission. The mission is to provide a range of services to the committed and probated youth. We're trying to create opportunities for not only the youth, but to their families to really be able to address the problematic issues that are going on and bring them to that next place of being able to be productive citizens who no longer engage in crimes. All right, so our structure. I kind of tried to break this down into something that makes some kind of sense. So in DJJ, you have your community services and you have your residential services. I myself have never worked in the community side of things, so these are your people, they could be the JSWs, the juvenile social workers, they're kind of like the probation officers of DJJ. You've got your alternative to detention people and your community mental health folks. So within that, I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of information about the educational requirements that go into those different career paths. On the residential side, you have your juvenile detention centers, which are like your jails. When you think of like a jail, that's what that's like. Your youth development centers, which are a step down, they're more like a rehabilitative center, but they're still a secure facility. Your group homes are less secure, but they're still like a place that the kid goes to if they're committed to DJJ. And then you've got your day treatments, which are for the kids who are dealing with legal stuff, but they struggle with traditional schooling, so they go through a day treatment program, so it's a little bit more structured and they get some intensive services along the way. So like I said, in our community services, I think here's one, so I apologize. All right. So our community services, we're collaborating with our community partners trying to figure out outpatient services, intensive outpatient, so you can include partial hospitalization, and case management. So for, they also do DJJ supervision. Like I said, this is what you would think of traditionally as a probation officer, but it's in the juvenile world. These people are bachelor's level people primarily. They work on referrals for community programs, referrals for DJJ mental health. They do some journaling stuff called Thinking for a Change. They'll do drug screens, ankle monitors, all that kind of stuff. They also do some different assessments. So community mental health services, that's what we think of as more traditional, like psych type positions. These are the positions that are going to require a master's degree. So you have the counseling, they do substance abuse, mental health, family therapy, and the sex offender treatment. You've got your assessments. They'll do your general mental health assessments to determine what type of services a kid might need. They also do the sex offender risk assessments and then some substance abuse assessments. And then report services involve things like professional testimony and assistance in making court decisions without level of care. So there's different levels of care that a kid might need in DJJ. It's just not what we want. be in a less confining type setting. So they might put them out on ankle monitor, they might get them into some specialized treatment. We actually have opened 2 facilities within DJJ at Moorhead Youth Development Center and Frankfurt Group Home that are all alternative to detention programs. They also do a lot of coordinating with different programming and then doing like a lot of family connection. These are your people who are constantly keeping track of our kids and trying to make sure that they're doing the things that they need to be doing. So the residential services are things that I'm a lot more comfortable with because that's been kind of the area that I've worked the most. So juvenile detention centers, we have 8 in the state of Kentucky. Like I said before, your juvenile detention centers are, they're what you would think of as like a jail type setting. Kids are secured in single cells. They're obviously out and they get certain types of services. They go to school and those type of things. They're spread across the state. We actually have one here locally in Paducah. That's where our juvenile detention center is in this region. It's the pre-trial detention. So this is where if somebody has been charged with a crime, they go to juvenile detention. From there, they go through the legal system. Sometimes they stay in detention through that whole time. Sometimes they'll go back to the community on one of those alternative to detentions or diversion programs. So if a youth is ordered to be detained, they'll screen the youth to figure out what the best placement is for them, what kind of services that they need, and all that kind of stuff. So even though I said the alternative to detention people, those detention alternative coordinators were kind of in that community vein, they do a lot of connection with the detention world. Youth development centers, that's where I'm at now. There's 6 across the state. Mayfield is the one in this end of the world, but they're spread all across the state. These are the programs where once a youth has been, so they've been arrested, they've been detained, they've been convicted, which juvenile court is completely different than adult court, but they've gotten their sentence. So their sentence includes being committed to DJJ. They'll either be placed at a youth development center or a group home. This is where we get them and do the treatment piece of it. So that's our whole goal is to be able to provide individual group and family counseling to address their criminogenic risk factors. There are 4 primary ones that we're targeting, which include like the antisocial thinking, behavior, peer relationships, those type of things. So we do anything from substance abuse to anger management. There's lots of stuff on independent living, financial literacy, anything that's going to prepare them for when they go out into the world, they're able to be successful. Right now in Mayfield, we have our public offenders and youthful offenders. We used to have the juvenile sexual offenders also and provide that treatment programming. Those are located at our Northern Kentucky Youth Development Center now. So our group homes are a little less secure than the Youth Development Center. If you think of a group home, think of like a house. That's what all of them look like. They look like homes. The Youth Development Centers are dorm style also, but the group homes really are like, they're like a home, and it's kind of a step down, so it's less secure. It's for the kids who are a lower risk level. So classification is they're the branch that does all the sorting out of which kid goes where. So if a kid scores lower, they would go to a lower level placement like a group home. Again, you can see they're spread all across the state. Probably the closest one to us is going to be in Hopkinsville, but again, we have them pretty much everywhere. A lot of the same type of youth as we see in a youth development center, but just like I said before, however they score out on all those assessments that people do, they would be at the lower end of the risk level. And the final one, state treatment. It's a weird little hybrid. It always falls under residential, but it's not really residential because the kid goes home at the end of the day. I kind of think of it like what Four Rivers does with their intensive outpatient. Like we house them throughout the day, we provide certain programming, it's a much more structured environment, and then they go home and implement those things in the moment in the community rather than waiting. Alright, so I just threw some pictures in there of some different things so you guys can kind of see that when people think of DJJ, when they think of justice involved youth who have committed crimes, they think about like this very harsh environment. There is some of that. I mean, detention is obviously what you think it is. Like it's much more like a confined setting. But once our kids get to a place where we can engage them in programming, we try to get them out in the community. You can see they do lots of projects, they do lots of giving back to the community. There's a lot of involvement in helping them to be better people. So you can't really do that sitting in a cell or sitting in a very confined space. So we really want them to learn how to practice those skills that we're teaching them along the way. Just for when there's some stuff, so EJJ is making a big push like on Facebook and social media platforms so that you can get out there and know about it. Like I said, whenever I applied for the job, I had no idea what EJJ was. So there's really a big push to help people understand what EJJ is and how you can be involved in that, whether it's through volunteering, internships, or pursuing a career. All right. So specific to psychology majors, I kind of broke it down because really, I mean, you can do a lot of stuff. I went from like the highest level of degree kind of down. So your highest would be your regional psychologist. We have 3 of those across the state. This is a person who has to have a PhD or a PsyD. They're kind of the overseer of the treatment programming in that region. So they oversee the outpatient, like the community mental health stuff, as well as they have some oversight over the residential. Your treatment directors are going to be in detentions and YDCs, which are where you have more of the youth. The group home numbers are a lot smaller, so they don't have a treatment director in group homes. You have to have a master's degree. It used to be just psych, but they kind of broadened that over the last few years, so you can have a master's in counseling and social work, marriage and family therapy, so it's really kind of expanded over the last couple of years. For community mental health, like I said before, you have to have a master's degree in licensure in mental health because you're doing those direct services. There are a few who qualify under some bachelor's degree with like certain kinds of experience, so there is a possibility there, but you kind of have to have your foot in the door to have that kind of experience. Your counselors, which are in detention, YDCs, and group homes and day treatment, is a bachelor's degree. There's some other qualifications. It's too much to list everything out, but everything's on the website. But these are your people who are kind of, I mean, they're doing a lot of the work. They're running the groups, they're doing individual counseling under supervision of the person in the facility, treatment director. So you're doing a lot of that day in and day out type of counseling work that I think most of the people in psychology fields kind of think that's what that is. And then your JSWs, these are, like I said before, your community folks who are doing a lot of the probation and working with the kids whenever they are returning to the community. And this is also a bachelor's degree type job. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a psychology bachelor's degree, but it does help to have some kind of helping profession type degree. So just because I feel like I have a due diligence to share what other type of jobs you can have in DJJ that may not even require a degree, because not everybody's going to want to continue their education to that point, or you may have people you know who don't want to continue their education to that point and might still be interested in. So our youth workers, supervisors, and YSPSs, it doesn't require anything but a high school diploma. These are your front-end staff that are working day in and day out with the kids. They're the ones that monitor them and supervise them throughout the day. Of course, in a facility, you've got cooks, you've got financial people, you've got a nurse, you've got superintendents, you've got the gamut of people that work in these facilities to be able to help manage the day in and day out operational stuff. So for other things in DJJ, again, I don't feel like I'm doing it justice because there's so many different types of positions you can have, but you can have anything from the more administrative, like fiscal managers, HRs, people, grant writing, those types of support professions. There's an evidence-based practice team, which consists of a lot of clinical folks, which would be psychology-based, but then they have other bachelor's degree people in that field. You've got your managers, which would be the people who are over the JSWs and the detention alternative coordinators. And then there's appointed positions. So all the ones I've said already are get off probation, there's a lot of stuff that goes into letting somebody go from a merit position. Your appointed positions, like your division directors, your commissioners, deputy commissioners, those are all non-merit positions because they're appointed by the governor. So just as an aside, if you work in state government and you have student loan debt, which most people who come to college do, 10 years with certain types of loan and so many payments, I think it's 10 years of payments, you have will qualify for the student loan forgiveness. So that's always a big plus for people if they stick in there and work that 10 years in state government. All right, so again, how to apply. You go to the website. Again, I didn't know anything about this until I actually got a job with EJJ. So you go to the website, if you Google Kentucky state employee jobs, this is the website that comes up. You click on all jobs, it'll bring up everything there and tell you all about it. So, I mean, with DJJ, the biggest thing is if you like working with kids who are on that spectrum of defiant and difficult to work with, these are the kids that you get, but they also are the ones that are most enjoyable. You will never have a boring day working for DJJ because there's always something going on. And it's just, it can be very, very rewarding. Frustrating at times, yes, but very, very rewarding in the end.
Okay. Working. Hello? I think I've got it. Okay. Last but not least, our next presenter is Dr. Sean Simons. He is an assistant professor here at Murray, where he coordinates the school psychology graduate programs. He also serves as the clinical director for the Center for Autism Spectrum Disorders here at Murray State, with current credentials as a Kentucky licensed psychologist and board-certified behavior analyst. Dr. Simons holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Harding University, as well as a master's and doctoral degree in school psychology from Oklahoma State University. Before coming to Murray State, Dr. Simons worked in a number of specialty settings, including outpatient assessment, pediatric clinics for children with prenatal substance exposure, and the Marcus Autism Center. His areas of specializations include the diagnostic assessment and treatment of problems associated with autism spectrum disorder, applied behavior analysis, implementation of response to intervention models in schools, and behavioral consultation. Welcome, Dr. Simons.
Hey. Are y'all here voluntarily or were y'all forced to be here?
Yep.
Maybe? Yes. That's cool. Well, be sure to thank your psych faculty for doing this. Don't think they're getting paid extra to do this. So y'all are my people. I was in your place not too long ago. I'm also a first-generation college student. Do we have any first-gen students in here? So I can definitely relate to feeling just lost and confused and not sure what to do with my life. Parents were no help whatsoever. I think my faculty tried the best they could, so we did some things through psych-hi and things like that. But hopefully this is helping you see not only kind of what success can look like, but that there are people that are willing to help make connections between training, your degree, and then some type of employment when you're done. So kind of looking at our panel and thinking about me, I'm definitely, I think, the odd one out. So I did go the graduate school route, went the doctoral route. I have no regrets about what I did. I'm happy to answer questions about graduate school and kind of what that's all about. I did choose more of a non-traditional school psychology path, so looking back, again, thinking about first gen and not really sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work with kids and youth. I had no interest in working with adults. And I knew that I was interested in low incidence disabilities. So I liked complex problems. I like things that really no one else knew how to help or what to do. So I went and got the training for the job that I kind of saw that needing to. So that's really one piece of advice that I have for you in here. Again, representing graduate school, but also just kind of life advice. Get the degree for the job that you want. If you don't know what the job is, don't go collecting degrees and hoping you'll figure it out later. That's really an expensive gamble. Not that graduate degrees aren't a waste of time or money, because they're certainly not, but to kind of put all your eggs in that basket and hope it works out and then realize you need something else later on, it can lead to a lot of unnecessary stress. So be sure not to put kind of too much pressure on yourself to have it all figured out right now. You should be trying to figure it out right now, which is, I think, why you're here. Make time to volunteer. Make time to interview people. Meet with your advisors and your faculty. Ask questions. Come to things like this. And just see what's out there. And if you're really not sure, I'm a big fan of options. Try to keep your options open. Don't narrow yourself down too much. So get the degree for the job that you want. I do want to echo, again, some things that have been said, that being trained in psychology means that you have an interest and some skills to work well with people. I am constantly trying to kind of hack meetings with others, or if I need to get something out of someone else, I'm trying to think about how I can use persuasion techniques and to try to get my point across. So one of my favorite books is Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. That's a good one. I think it's like $10 on Amazon. That was written by a social psychologist. Great, great book. And your training does qualify you, or at least displays an interest in working with people. So if you know that you do want to work with people, there are lots of ways that you can contribute your work. To end with, and I want to leave plenty of time for y'all to ask questions, I want to make a connection between kind of your bachelor's training in the field of behavior analysis. I think that field has really, really developed over the past 10, 20 years. It wasn't something that crossed paths with me in college, but if it had, I would have strongly considered getting a master's degree in ABA, or now there's a bachelor's option for you to kind of be specifically trained for it and move into the field of behavior analysis. And your department has the courses that would make you eligible for the BC ABA credential. So definitely talk with Dr. Nasali or your advisor about that. But again, I'm glad that you're here. I don't want to kind of take up all the Q&A time, but definitely redirect kind of grad school questions, and if you have kind of a hindrance or an uncertainty, I'm happy to talk to you about that. Again, my training is in school psychology, which is more non-traditional kind of psychology discipline. I'm happy to answer questions about that. And yeah.
Thank you all for speaking. It's really nice to hear the various viewpoints. So now it's time for questions, and we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so answering questions across board. So you just raise up your hand. You might have to speak loudly because this is messing with us a lot today. But I think I'm going to put this on the table, and any of you can go ahead and respond to any of the questions that I asked. So yeah, I'd like to start us off. Yes, go for it.
If you recommend going to grad school, what types of stuff would you say that you should be doing now?
So the question was about if you're interested in grad school, what should you be doing now while you're in your undergrad program? I think I'm just kind of coming up with things. As best you can, try to eliminate things that you know that you don't want to do. So like I mentioned, I knew I wanted to work with kids and teens. So anything involving adult psychopathology, like I wasn't going to pursue volunteer work or programs that would qualify me to do that. I would get as much experience as you can now, which again it's kind of hard to balance because you got a bunch of classes and stuff like that. But if you've never had an interaction with a human, like in a career setting or in a discipline where psychology is happening in front of you, there are ways to set that up where you can at least go volunteer and shadow. At the very least, you can connect with someone and just ask them some questions like, do you regret your life choices? Are you happy with this job? What degree do you have? And then maybe you can get some ideas of what you can do. I did undergraduate research projects. That was a huge boost for me. It looked good applying and gave me better preparation for like the research methodology aspects of grad school. So I guess consider joining like research teams or undergraduate projects and just try to get some experience.
Research this thing.
There you go. Just hit that power button every so often, I found.
Research where you want to live, okay? Because especially in psychology, licensure changes per state. So if you want to stay in Kentucky, research the Kentucky Board of Psychology. If you're thinking, you know what, I want to live in New York City, research the board in New York City. Because like I said, it changes. So you don't want to get to a master's program and then you cannot practice in North Carolina, because you need a PhD. So looking at your licensure board is, it's really, really important if you want to pursue the, master's route.
I have a question, Mr. Lampe, with regards to the media area. But the question was, what are some, I don't know if it's job titles or job positions in the radio field that one can go into with a major or minor in psychology as the background, based on what you shared?
Yeah, I mean, even journalism positions. I started as a journalist. If you look at most journalism postings, they don't require a journalism degree. Like, you have to be a strong writer, you have to have a curious spirit in mind, and you have to be able to size up a source. You've got to be able to figure out what path to take. So analytical skills, I think those are probably pretty key that you gained during your time as a psych major here. So entry-level positions in journalism or media are not going to be degree specific that I have seen. And so coming out with a bachelor's degree in psych, I believe, will prompt some curiosity with the person who's interviewing you or the search committee or the hiring committee, because they'll think this person has some interesting skill sets that might be able to help us think differently about our approach to whatever it is you'd be doing in media, social media curation or podcasting, audio storytelling, and classical journalism work. So yeah, I mean, I hope that answers the question.
Questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. My question is for, hello?
Yeah.
My interest in psychology is in assessments. And my plan was always to get a master's so that I could do assessments. Do you know, you may not know, do you know if that includes neuropsychological batteries?
It doesn't. With your master's, you need to have specific you have to be a neuropsychologist. However, my supervisor was a neuropsychologist, and he really helped me learn more about testing. So I was able to become a psychometrician. So basically, what I was doing is I would meet with the people, I would administer the test. And then I would score it, give it to him. He conducted the report and the interpretation. So you can still do some testing, psychological evaluations, and do some, sub-tests from batteries like the NAB, has attention module, language module, so you can use it for different portions. But for the interpretation and report and behave as a neuropsychology, testing has to be a neuropsychologist. So. But you can still work somewhere around it.
My plan, I work for a neuropsychologist, and my plan is to administer the battery, and he reads it. Is that how?
Yes, that's exactly how it is. What psychometrician? It's technically considered a psychometrician. I don't know if it works. Oh, it does.
Let's get up close.
Gonna keep it like that, like a flute. It's
labeled as a testing by psychometrician by insurance company. So that's basically what you do.
Thank you. I know I'm on the right path then.
Yes, you are. Incredible. It's a battery.
As well as on the end of direct. You go first.
Okay, so if you're gonna work with the DJJ, do you recommend having like maybe a minor like criminal justice or having some kind of background in it, or is that something you just don't really need but would be helpful?
If you know for sure that you want to go into like a justice-involved field, I'm sure that it would be helpful. My background was solely psychology. It was a psychology bachelor's degree and then on to a clinical psych master's program. I had zero knowledge of the criminal justice system before starting with DJJ. So as long as you're willing to learn, you'll pick it up and learn it from the people who are there who can kind of guide you along. But I'm sure it would be helpful to have kind of a foundational knowledge if you knew that's what you wanted to do.
Mr. Lambie, I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you were journalism at first. I'm an advertising major, and my minor is in psychology.
Right.
I have a question like, what should I focus on if employers do see that to help make myself more appealing?
Oh, well, I think it will, I think the experiences that you get in the psych department will help you maybe think a little bit differently about how to reach clients, right? So like, it depends on what level of advertising you'll be doing, if you're gonna be working with the client trying to reach potential customers, or if you will be primarily like customer focused, like doing research on potential customers for your clients, right? So I think some of your research methods might come in handy too. They still take research methods in undergrad, right? So thinking through that in terms of if you want to conduct focus groups or things like that for your client and your potential customer base. So I would probably lean in heavily on maybe the quantitative skills that you're gaining in this program and lean on those in terms of where you would like to take your advertising career. Does that make sense?
So this is actually kind of a basic question, but so in our senior year, like much later, you can take a course that helps you like get an internship and puts you in like into that experience. But what's a good way to start that early? Like what's the most simplest way to start reaching out, like to find early on by yourself?
So if the question is intentional, I'll answer that, but I'll answer that later on, okay? Because I'll have it explained to that on that. Cool. Thank you. Yes.
How versatile would you say your psych degree is?
How versatile is your psych degree? Versatile.
Speaking from somebody who doesn't work in the psychology field at all, I'd say it's extraordinarily versatile. You know, like, it is. It's helpful. I talk about it on my team a lot. You know, sometimes they lean on me and they're like, "Chad, you got a psych degree. What's this person like?" They think I know everything, but I don't. But I think that it's valuable. I find it versatile in my career. It's not like, and you're an entrepreneur, so you have multiple different like tendrils. So I imagine that you probably lean on it in your career too.
I don't have a psych degree, so, but I think it goes back to the human, like I said before, knowing how behavior works and mindset works and those types of things, and like pulling that in and deciding what you want out of your life. I think it can be very versatile in how to make it work for you, whether it's from advertising to radio to criminal justice to communal health. Like you're seeing right now how it can go in absolutely any direction.
Yeah, I mean, from somebody who's done like the most random things with her degree, you can do a lot. I started working with adults, and I was like, I'll never work with kids. Now I work with kids. I will never work with adults. I can tell you that right now. I have done therapy. I have done testing. I have done domestic violence groups. I have done anger management. I'm certified in trauma work. I do testing, children, adults, you know. You can do substance use solely, you know, work. you can do a lot of things. You know, you can be a case manager. So we think of psychology as just you sit there and you're like, how does that make you feel? And I have never asked that question because it's so cliche. You can do a lot of things. You can do intakes only. You can just work at a crisis unit and do treatment teams. You can do just emergency calls in the middle of the night and go to the jails and to the hospitals and just do emergency assessments. You can do a lot. So just don't think that psychology is just this one universe that you're stuck in. And I'm thankful in my experience at Four Rivers that I have been able to switch whenever I wanted to, you know, and just do what I wanted to do. But if you start with adults and you don't like it, you can go to children's services. You don't lose your position. You can transfer to another department that you want to explore. Even if you just want to, like, you know what, I'm bored with kids, so I'm going to adults. And they're like, okay. And they just send you to adults. So it can vary. So it's very versatile.
I'd say the same with DJJ. My superintendent is actually also a graduate from Murray State in the clinical psychology program. Well, the assistant superintendent, the superintendent has a bachelor's in social work. So there's a wide variety of things. I think the biggest thing is if you have like that skill set of understanding how to work with people and how to interact and engage and make something happen, you use those things to sell yourself. Like if you use what you learn in the program to sell yourself and how that skill set can be helpful in that particular discipline. I mean, I think that would be the biggest advice I could give, whether it's going into advertising or a more clinical field or like anything, public relations, banking, anything where you can show like my experience has helped me to be able to learn how to read people and interact with people.
For Dr. Simons, regarding the field of school psychology, you said that was a sort of non-traditional psychology field. Do you think you could elaborate on that and sort of explain?
Yeah, I suppose that's some of my opinion, but I feel like, and I'll speak, I guess, to my experience. When I was going through undergrad, it was very much look at maybe like clinical psychology, look at being a counselor, being a researcher. And to me, like none of those fit really well. So I think that is more of a non-traditional. The other aspect is that some school psych programs just don't reside in the college where psychology resides. So we're actually in the College of Education, but I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I just practice with kids, and I train people to work in schools, which is where kids go. So that's kind of where I was coming from with that.
For me, so I went to Western, and there I had a dual master's program there for mental health counseling, marriage and family therapy. And really, I was interested in my bachelor's degree is family consumer science. I had research, and it was in mate selection. So that kind of led me down a really weird path to today. But so I worked as an extension agent right out of college for the University of Kentucky, and there's an extension office in every county. And I was a family and consumer science agent. I loved how relationships worked and learning more about that. So that's kind of why I picked. We had to get a master's degree when I worked there. They paid for it. So I was like, okay, I need something that's like gonna give me a license or something that's financially responsible if I'm gonna spend the time to get this master's degree. And it just fit with me the best of anything else. Honestly, this is not like I wanted to be this like story, but it worked out. And you know, I think not everybody has the desire or the patience or the want to work with relationships, and it's a very big need in our community. So if you have a desire to do that, there's always going to be space for you.
So I went to do my education on clinical psychology. However, I see not exactly a degree is offered yet. Most of them also have forensic psychology. Would you recommend that I go ahead and get a degree in forensic psychology or wait until clinical psychology is it?
don't know if you're wanting to work in a justice field like DJJ. I don't know that forensic psychology would be something that would be super beneficial. It's just not that niche, like you said. Like it's not a niche that's super popular, so there's not like a real specialty for that. I know with one of the place I used to work for, the Rape Crisis and Child Advocacy Center, they have forensic interviewers, so a degree like that would be probably advantageous going into that, because their whole piece of it is that investigation piece and using those psych skills to be able to get as much information as possible to further that investigation. So something like that probably would. It depends on how far you want to go, and like Aloha said, where you want to work, because that really does impact what type of degree you go for.
Yes.
My question is for Aloha. I know you mentioned about your supervisor was a psychologist. I'm interested in that. Do you have any job description of what they do, perhaps like afterwards?
I cannot speak for all the degrees he had, because he had a lot of certifications. He did a lot of psychotherapy, but his concentration was, he also had a certification in forensic psych, so he did a lot of evaluations for court, for competency to stand trial. On the neuropsychologist side, he worked mostly with neurologists to do testing to determine if a cognitive decline, for some of the dementia people. He worked a lot with traumatic brain injury. That was a lot of his area of experience. So it was mostly working with neurologists to look at if there's a vascular disease, what was the effects of that. And traumatic brain injury. Those were his two main focus. He did have a PhD. Not sure whether neuropsychology part came about. That was prior to me going there. So, and I don't want to speak and then tell you the wrong thing. So, but it's a really fascinating area. Like I learned a lot from that. Even if you don't end in that path, if somebody who has that experience will help you see psychological testing in a different perspective, helps you analyze other stuff and ask better questions.
I was just going to say something really nice. When she was asking the question about DJJ, don't you think that I found in our clinical practice that even if you get a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, whatever, there's a lot of certifications and things that you can choose. Like if you're interested or specialized, there's way more certifications than even when I was in my bachelor's and even my master's, even when I was a recent graduate with my master's, I had no idea the amount of certifications that you can get. And Aloha just spoke to that too. Like you can choose to specialize in so many different ways other than PhD. Like something you have to have a PhD or a doctoral degree or a master's degree, but there's a lot of different avenues, I guess, to do that.
Yeah. Also go to where there's a need, which is very important, If you go somewhere where it's saturated with forensic science, are you even going to be able to get a job? So always, I'm not saying, move to the middle of nowhere, North Dakota, no offense, but, it's just like, it's so up there. But choose places where there's really an opportunity for you to stand out, with that. And like you said, certifications are very important. Master's Clinical Psych, Certified Domestic Violence Counselor, Certified Trauma, TFCBT provider. So you can get those certifications, and a lot of employers pay for those trainings. I pay $0 for my certifications. So.
How difficult would you say that it is to get into counseling?
You know, I spent years trying to talk people into Western Kentucky into coming to counseling at all. And now, you know, telehealth is another level. I think it's one of those things that either it's a fit for you or it's not. And learning that, nothing is, in my opinion, it's very difficult to replace that in-person connection you get when it comes to counseling. But some people are really intimidated by that, and we're seeing that in more and more numbers. They are actually more open and connect better through telehealth. Not everyone, but I do think that people giving it a go and trying it and breaking into telehealth is a lot, the barriers are a lot lower today than they ever have been.
It's a matter of where you want to stop too, because from a community mental health side, I can do telehealth with my master's degree, independently licensed, but then LPAs can't, you know, for Medicaid regulations. So it's important based on the degree and whatever regulation the state has for that specific insurance. You know, like she said, telehealth can be very convenient, but it's not for, you know, everybody. And it gets boring after a while, you know, to just, it depends on who you work with. Like, it really doesn't work well with kids, like little kids.
Taking
Also,
classes.
the things you may see, it's great, but, or the amount of shirtless people that come into your training is, yes, it does, it happens. But it can be very convenient for those consumers that are not, you know, they're, you know, too anxious to go, or, you know, some of my adult with autism spectrum disorders, they just don't want to leave the house. So it's just like, okay, we have to do this first to here, but then you have to come here for testing. So it helps break those, you know, that part. But you just be mindful of your degree and whether it's possible. So.
I'm interested in the counseling field, but I'm also interested in opening a restaurant. So my question is, how did you start out? How did you manage all of that?
I think that would be a whole different ballgame. I could use a lot of site support on certain days, but so how that works is, if I were sitting in your shoes right now and I wasn't sure which road I wanted to go down or which road I wanted to go down first, I would spend time with someone in both and get experience. And I can't say that enough or echo what the doctor said down here a few minutes ago about if you've not been in the real world and in the real profession with something, do that before you make a decision, because it's very different to be a student of something and then to be in the real life of what that looks like in the working world. And I would ask the questions like, do you like what you're doing today just as much as you did? I would ask some questions about what that's been like, and then just spend some time reflecting on where you wanted to go first. Because there's not a right or a wrong. And we were talking earlier, it all shakes out, you'll figure it out, but I would spend time in shadowing or interviewing or volunteering or interning with both.
All right, just in case you have some more questions, get ready to share them, but I think I'm going to segue in here and talk about internships, because your point nicely ties in the reason why in psychology we do have an internship course, which is one of the capstone classes that you can take. Now the question was, when should one start thinking about it? I would say start thinking about it at least 3 semesters before you graduate. And I will show you there are flyers in the department, but just in case you're not in the department, we'll show you one shortly. But before I do that, I'll still talk. If you do not mind, go ahead and fill this 3-4 question survey real quick, and then in about 3 minutes, we'll change slide and put the internship flyer up there for you all. But let me go ahead and talk about the internships real quick. And then if there are any other questions you can ask, then we wrap up, and then you can all come spend some time talking to the panelists individually. So like I said before, internship is one of the 4 capstones, I think, courses we do have, and it is wise to start asking questions. Talk to your advisors about the internship program. It's good to start thinking about it at least 3 semesters. I'm saying 3 semesters because the internship program is really growing, which is really nice. And we tried as much as possible to pair students who are interested and eligible to the site that best fits their interest, because we want to offer you the opportunity to explore, go out there and not just walk out of the university with knowledge, but practice, just like has been mentioned here. Get to see if you're interested in it. One of the things I've really loved about being the internship coordinator for this 3-4 semesters so far is where students go out to do to an internship site, finish, and say they really love it. Some people have gotten jobs out of it that way, which has really been nice and rewarding for me when that happens. And then some realize they did not like it at all, which is great, because then you know that's not the path for you, rather than getting into it and then struggling or hating it. So it's really been nice doing that. We currently have 6 sites, and we recently got 3 more. And actually, of the 5 panelists here, all of them are sites in terms of they've agreed to Compass Counseling, the Mayfield Youth Development Center, and then Four Rivers just this semester accepted us as a site. So that's really exciting. Looking forward to working with you all there. The MSU Center for Autism Spectrum Disorders, headed by Dr. Simons, is a site we already have. And then Bloom Behavioral Therapy. The Bloom Therapy Center, where Dr. Nastali is also another site we have, and then there are various others. So typically, I think we have like 9 so far. So it's really growing, which has been neat to see quite a number of our students doing internships. I think this semester we have 10 students doing internship, and we are going to grow it to 15 next semester. So if you're interested in applying for the course, you already got my email. You got an email from us. Well, Dr. Nastali is going to be an internship coordinator as well next semester, so she's going to be in charge of the ABA students, and then I'll do the non-ABA students work together to provide the opportunity for guidance and mentoring as the students are at the various internship sites. Now, where are these sites? Typically, they're about 1 hour drive radius around from our state, so from Paris, Tennessee, all the way to Mercer County, Illinois. Majority of our sites are in Paducah, and now we're going to have a Mayfield one, and then the rest are in Murray, and then sometimes we work with Youth Village, is that correct? Youth Village? Okay, good, Youth Villages. Sometimes we do have some of our students go there. We prefer students to have a GPA of 3 and above, but then the minimum requirement would be lower than 3, so in the 2s. If you're interested in a site that we do not have an agreement with, you're welcome to come talk to me or Dr. Nastali. We'll work with you to figure out if that's possible. So for example, we are trying to work with an animal therapeutic center in the region to see if one of our students interested in working with that site could intern there. If it works, hooray. If it doesn't work, that's okay. We'll figure something out. So that's what we've been doing, and that's kind of like a summary of what the internship course is. Feel free to ask questions. We'll be happy to answer those questions for you. And so we really hope these presentations today kind of gives you an idea of where you can go with it. And I really love how it's not one straight shot. Everyone has a different story, and I believe they are loving what they're doing. I'm sure there are days they hate what they do. I think that's just life, right? We all go through that. So come ask me on a good day, I'll tell you all the fun things. Come ask me on a day that I'm not in a good mood, you probably hear something different. But the point is, many of us are doing things we love, and the journey is not straight. But learning and, for example, doing training, certifications in your niche is really where you eventually go, because you may not get you may not get your course or career interest right there, even with your bachelor's. But the nice thing about psychology is that it provides that broad base to shoot off in whichever direction you want to go. Any questions for me or anyone here so far? Okay, shall I go ahead and move on? All right. So we have some minutes left, and what we plan to do is to close officially and then give you all the chance to spend some time talking to our panelists. And we have 2 faculty here right now. A number came and left. You're welcome to talk to them as well if they are available to ask whatever questions you have. Feel free to reach out to myself and Nastali anytime. You have our email addresses, you know us, you know our faces, and ask further questions whenever. So on behalf of every member of the psych department, it's really been a joy having you all. We've been talking about this program right from the beginning, and it's been such a wonderful support all through it. We really want to say thank you for coming and starting us off, and thank you for sharing your experiences to our students. There are about 65 students here, and we're really, really thankful for pouring into them. I want to believe that you all have learned something and it will guide your path towards what you want to do. Really, at the end of the day, that's what every faculty member in our department wants, that you are set to go out into the real world and make something of yourself and enjoy it. So thank you so much for making that happen for us today.
Thank you all.